Hey, I love that.
Wow.
I love that
That
thing.
was really good.
Oh, I can breathe.
That's a really good fingal. Who was that by, Trott?
That was by Rensselaer. Thank you very much. Popo on the way. Too good. Had to have creative control. You're going to prison, Rensselaer. Thank you. And welcome to the Hat Check Podcast, episode 55 on the 18th of June, 2021. That's right. We've been in lockdown for over a year, still doing Hat Chats. So, Ross, who are you?
Yeah. I am Ross Hornby. Welcome to the show. Alex Smith, who are you?
Oh, well, funnily enough, I'm that. And I'm Alex Smith as well.
Going by Alex today.
No, Alan. You've changed your name again.
No, that's just overly complicated.
Can we call you Alid?
Very confusing.
Like
Alid.
Alid
Call me
Jones, singer
like
of
the famed
The Snowman.
singer.
Yeah.
Well, and other things. He didn't just do the Snowman.
No,
He's like
no.
massive.
That's it.
Like a huge choral singer. Bom bom. God, I watched that far too many times. I always used to hate the bit where the snowman burnt his leg on the exhaust of the motorcycle.
Never saw it.
Film.
Even as a child, I
Snowman.
found that entire thing depressing. I don't even know why. I think it was
Oh,
the
it was
art
quite
style.
depressing.
It was the animation
Yeah.
style. I think I just looked at it and it just felt
Yeah.
drab.
Yeah.
I'm probably absolutely shitting on people's like favorite film or something as they were a kid, but I don't care.
Wow.
No, I think you're right. It was very drab. It was very desaturated, wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
all of the hex marks for color and things like that were always very sparsely spaced and things. Yeah, no, and I do understand what you mean.
Yeah.
I do think that drab, depressed feeling did give a very sort of wintry feel, though, like the snow being
Yeah.
heaped on top of everything, and like the guy being in his big heavy overcoat gives a very wintry feeling, which I quite like.
I prefer Chris
no,
Trott's version personally, as well of the song. Just thinking back to that.
Milking.
Oh,
Well, it was milking in the air, wasn't it? Milking in the air.
It was
Yeah.
weird.
Such a
song, that.
bizarre thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That era of Chris Trott's a weird one. Not sure about that guy.
Oh,
He won't amount to anything.
I don't know.
Which leads
I
me
like
to a
that
great
song.
question I have for you guys. A bit of a thought experiment that I saw on Reddit
Right,
earlier.
okay. Okay.
If your consciousness, as it is right now, could be sent back to when you were 15 years old, you maintain all your current knowledge and experience, what would you do?
Make a lot of money. Make an awful lot of money, then work out what to do.
Wait. Have you gone back in time, but with your memory from today? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
back
saying?
to when you're 15. So you're sending this
Okay.
consciousness now back in time into your 15-year-old body.
Well, it's quite difficult because you say that about money, Smith, which is interesting. But obviously, at the age of 15, I didn't have any money to be able to profit off of certain things. I guess you could maybe make small gambles on things you know in the future, or maybe buy Bitcoin as soon as it comes out for a few pennies.
Well, exactly. Yeah. That.
But then you're still waiting for another 8 years or so before
I
it
always
kicks off.
think about whether it's worth, and I have done this before and then forgotten. Memorize a series of winning lottery numbers and simply like play those every
Just
time.
in case. Have you
But what
actually
if it
been
just
doing that?
I mean, even beyond just like buying Bitcoin, you have such a like treasure trove of information of events and developments
with this
and things
brain.
like that you could draw upon. And I mean, I'm not saying it has to be accurate either. You'd be surprised. You would probably, there's a lot of ambient knowledge we all hold that I'm sure going back like 15 years, you'd be like, well, hold on, I'd normally do this with this. Oh wait, that doesn't exist yet. Oh, I'll try and
I think it would
invent
be
that, or I'll make a decision based on this or something like that,
you get to skip ahead like a crucial part of the worrying about the completely pointless stuff a 15-year-old worries about. You just get past that immediately.
Oh, that's
right?
true.
Yeah.
Like
I guess so. Yeah,
exams
mentally.
and college and uni. I guess you'd feel like a 33-year-old hanging out with 15-year-olds. It should be really.
You would feel like
Yeah.
that, yeah. But also, like, with that said, like, would you go through the education system because you've already been through it? Like, would you go through it again
You'd
with a
have
different
to
path?
prove it,
Maybe learn
though.
something new?
You'd have
Or
to
would
tell
you-
everyone my consciousness from 30, like 15 years from now is put into my. Don't you guys understand? It's like, all right,
This
kid.
is insane. Even the fact this happened, we need to discover this technology. We can live forever.
God, I don't know. That'd be weird.
I mean,
what would you do
I
when you were
would
15?
I think you're just a lot more wise at 30. You just have so much more context and perspective on how those things are going to immediately affect you, and you'd make more informed decisions. I think. I mean, I fail to see how it would be anything other than a gigantic blessing. No human being in existence has suddenly been given 15 years worth of advantage on every other human being. It would just be amazing. Yeah.
I think I'd prefer it the other way, where I would be 15 and I'd know that if I went down this path that I am doing now, existing as this form of me, I guess, the butterfly effect,
what that would look like.
If I could see like where I'm at in my headspace and as well as what I've achieved, and just knowing that I could nudge certain things in certain directions, opportunities I've missed out on or friendships I've lost along the way that I could have maintained or fostered slightly, if I knew that I could like prod certain things and put a bit more effort in some things, like don't bother with that stuff, that's not worth it, you know, and start that way.
Essentially you do, Trot, though. Essentially you do. Like, they are one and the same. If you were a 30-year-old and went back into a 15-year-old's body, and
I guess you get to redo it. Yeah,
you would have all that perspective and wisdom, and you would be able to make different decisions. And
I just don't want to be a 33-year-old in a 15-year-old body. It's a bit creepy.
It's more of a case of like, I guess you've enjoyed certain things, so you wouldn't do those things again, so you wouldn't lead up to the same path that
you've done
now.
You've done it already.
Because you'd be like, well, I've let's take gaming for example. Like, those games that you've played throughout those 15 years, you've played them all. You've done those bits. So when they come out again, you're not going to be excited for them. You're going to try different things.
You've got to wait 15 years for Unreal Engine 5 to come out. God, the game's graphics
you set yourself back there.
Guys,
you're like,
you wait.
You're on PS2 and you're like, what?
Wait for Horizon Zero Dawn.
You could have a hand. You could have a hand in pushing forward like all these technologies. Like you, I think you would become the singular most important person on the planet. I think, because you have just like you have the ability to say, hey, you know what, scientists that we're considering funding this like research into this thing, like say for example, the recent example is that black hole thing I was looking at the other day. That took 20 years to develop that project, from conception to building all of the telescopes required, getting all the coordination, 20 years. And they didn't even know if it was going to work. And then thankfully it did work. Like, that is an example of, there are plenty of things in science over the last 15 years that perhaps chances weren't taken or chances were taken.
I guess you got to
be tangible. I agree if it's tangible. However, getting someone to take you seriously as a 15-year-old is probably extremely hard. Like, so if you were like trying to get this across saying, I know what's going to happen in the next 15 years. I've got this knowledge.
Watch out
you would
for
just
Donald
be
Trump.
told you're crazy and move on. Like, there's only so much you could do.
Now, you would. I think. I mean, it's a good question. I think initially you'd have to prove that, but again, it wouldn't be difficult to prove, because there are like think tanks. There are elements of government that have sort of futurology style think tanks that will try and consider like what's coming up, what's the challenges the country going to be facing, and things like that in the next decade. And things you will say will align with certain bits of information that could be verified and cross-checked. I mean, like,
the worry is is that natural humanistic desire to control that asset. So, for example, you have all this knowledge of like, this is a corrupt business that's going to get out of hand, and are actually siphoning money because I've got that knowledge. You got to be careful, like Julian Assange, whistleblowing. I know what's happening, ultimately, and has happened and will happen. Those companies are not going to want me with that knowledge getting out. So my chance of being assassinated are pretty high once they realize.
Yeah, I just don't think you'd be taken seriously. Like, they wouldn't listen. Imagine a 15-year-old today.
If
listen
to
Greta Thunberg.
Though,
no one's listening to her.
Yeah, you could just tell them like, okay, like there are these certain technologies, these will succeed. There's this happening here.
Scratch and sniff won't take off.
How do I know, like the next projected conservative leaders? Like, how do I know like there'll be a lot of things that you can talk about that are okay, not concrete, but there'll be a lot of things that will make sense as part of a larger picture that I think would be verifiable.
But what about on the personal front? Is in like, it's more. I think the question
Investments.
almost is more asking on
Coinbase
like
account.
what you would do rather than just like going straight to finances or something. Would you behave differently? Would you kind of? I guess you would be
Guess you
yeah,
would
like
naturally
like Trott says, 33-year-old in a 15-year-old's body. So
Yeah.
your confidence towards anything is different, surely.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
go full Tony
guess.
Stark with it.
Yeah, and you'd have probably
Absolutely.
more of an arrogance about things because you know that that's an outcome.
Because you're the only human
known,
being in
yeah.
existence that has 15 years knowledge of the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
But
probably would instill
I
a
don't,
certain
how do you
arrogance.
prove it? I just don't. Unless you knew all the like you say lottery numbers to be like, this is how I know. How would you prove it? Do you
I mean,
think?
Bitcoin is an obvious one. Bitcoin is an obvious
sure.
one. You'd get a Coinbase account, which, let's be honest, I'm sure plenty of people under 16 have managed to get, especially when they were starting up. Yeah, you just do that. I mean, there are simple steps to doing it. You would invest in certain things. You would, and I mean that. Yeah, I just don't think it's not that it's so easy now to get into stock trading and all this other stuff through these brokers.
Yeah,
You could be,
I mean, and that would just fund everything else.
Sure.
I
How
probably
would you
wouldn't
prove
bother
it?
with education.
My question is,
must
how would you
admit.
prove it to someone that you knew this?
Well, you wouldn't have to prove it because you'd
you
be
just
a
know
fucking
that those
billionaire.
things would go well. You just have to invest in them, and then
Yeah, it doesn't. You don't need to prove it to anyone. If you're a billionaire in crypto, you just roll around like a
just
Russian
sort
oligarch.
yourself out, and then the rest is like, wow, I'm actually 15 years
Well,
older
once
than
you
I
have
said I am.
like
In my brain.
world-changing amounts of
Sure.
money, you could actually do some really good things with that. You'd hope.
Yeah.
I guess that's where Smith
Who's
wants
to
to
say
get.
the billionaires of our existence, Ross, aren't just people that have
Wow.
done the same situation?
This is what I was
come
going to
back
get
the same
to.
thing?
So, like, take the
Right,
thought
okay.
experiments further with these people that have just, just breezed through life and become like the exact thing that everyone aspires to be. Not everyone, but it's the dream, the capitalist dream of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, where they have an empire and just limitless money. And some guy is just like, I want to make a space company and send rockets to space because I like rockets. It's ultimately, he's got that kind of fuck you money. Are they precogs?
Are they precogs?
I think they're people that have.
I think they're lucky.
I don't think the money that they're people that we're in a broken system, and they're the result of some elements of that system.
Yeah.
So they haven't had their
I don't think they're
consciousness
time
transferred.
travelers. I think that their wealth can be accrued, can't it? We have like money funneling superhighways.
Do you think they
And
have...
also,
go on.
anyone would make it. There's always going to be someone at the top, regardless of who we know that it is now, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, etc. There would always be someone else who was at the top. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it's part luck, and then when people are like, yeah, but they work really hard for their billions. But it's like once you get to a certain amount of money, like it makes money itself,
The
and
system
that's
makes money for you.
So it's
These
interesting
kinds
hearing
of
working
like
class people say that kind of
stories.
thing.
Every time these people are like put on a pedestal and talked about as like they were just regular people like you or me that make the right decisions and made good choices. They skirt over all the failures and the luck and the other like handholds that they had getting to where they are. Not to diminish the fact that they clearly have put a lot of work in.
You can diminish it. You can diminish it if you want.
I guess it's easy to because there's no one else like them, and everyone is in our position where looking at these people who are untouchable, essentially.
No, I mean you don't have to deify a person or hell even respect them because they work.
Yeah.
Or, like this is if you really step back from it, like really step back from it, like that you've got to look at like work culture and the idea of value and the idea of like I was watching Jeremy Clarkson Farms, and he did a fucking terrible job of it, so you can probably make more money from it. But ultimately he ended up his entire farm of 1,000 acres made 144 quid for the year. Everything else just went to covering costs of running that farm. And I mean,
Wow.
whilst he did a terrible job, he still maintained the farm and still
144 quid.
farmed for another year. Like as in the idea of subsistence farming came up, of like imagine farming like a piece of land where that makes grows all the food that you need to live, right? And you have fresh water, you have food, you have shelter. You have everything enough to make you happy and keep you alive. And let's say it's quite a beautiful farm. It's not like a shed or a shack or anything like that. You know, you've got quite a beautiful place to live.
Knocking sheds.
And you grow enough food to feed you and your family, and you have water and, you know, everything you need, right? That wouldn't, I think in that world, the value of work, it wouldn't be the value of work. It would be the value of what you can maintain or what you can grow or what you have, you know, like, so it's not just like, it's not about the value of simply working. It's about the value of like how that work interacts with your life and what kind of life that creates, I suppose. And, you know, like with Bezos and Elon Musk, like they're creating so much money that it's not even about their relation to their life anymore. It's not even about the relation of like what that work and that value actually brings to their existence. It's just ridiculous. It's just nothing now, isn't it? It's just gone from, it's not about work ethic. It's not about the results of their work turning into just rewards or a relevant amount of money. It's just something else entirely now, isn't it?
It's about the hierarchy of it, right? You know, they got to they build up to a stage where, oh, I don't need to do this job anymore. I can pay someone to do that job for me.
Yeah.
And that cycle goes on and on until you're at the top, and then you're like, well, I don't need to do anything. I can sit back and let my company do its own thing.
The higher up you get and the more that tree develops, and you have workers working for workers, you get that disconnect from the people at the bottom. Jeff Bezos is so far removed from those people that pull 12-hour shifts in the warehouses and sometimes have to piss where they're standing because they have a computer which is telling them, tracking exactly how many packages they're doing in an hour. Everything becomes data points at that point for those individuals.
And those people in that warehouse will never make it to where Jeff Bezos is now. Like and I think by deifying people who are so successful, you're essentially maintaining the lie that through hard work that person can achieve, really, because they can't. There's a ceiling on it, and there's a separation between what we classify as ultimate achievement and ultimate success and what we can reasonably achieve in a lifetime.
It's rigged against you because those people that are at the top don't want you to ultimately rise up to the same ranks. They want.
I think they're indifferent, but it doesn't really. I don't think they necessarily want to keep people down, but they certainly probably understand that there can't be a billion Jeff Bezoses, you know.
Yeah,
like,
it's unsustainable with the current structure. Yeah.
I don't think anyone thinks they're a good person, no, or any. But I don't think it's about like being good. It's just about like the position at which we hold them within our society. Because, I mean, I've spoken about this before about certain YouTubers and things like that. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't watch them, don't engage them, don't agree them. If people are held up and shown to many, many people within a society or a group of people, they become put in a certain place, and that place tends to be one of aspiration and of admiration. And I just think that's it's just a stupid fucking habit.
I saw you retweeted what is that news?
Double Down News.
Double Down News. So that guy that's talking about this sort of thing and how celebrity is driving this need for consumerism and putting these people on the pedestal and just driving that product is ultimately really bad for the individual and their happiness. And then that desire and need becomes the product in and of itself. It's interesting. I found it interesting. It's true, but like we're all kind of stuck in it. So
it creates a culture of wanting to want things.
Yeah.
So because you might be happy with, let's say a new set of headphones. You've got headphones now. They work fine, but there's a new one coming out like next week.
For sure.
And they look slightly different. They're released sooner. So you're thinking, well, okay, that's something I want to get.
I think
so you just kind of like you look forward to wanting something else, and I think that's the culture that we've kind of just grown up in, and it's just getting I guess
not only
increasing,
else, but also new. I think there's a lot of value in the newness of something and oldness of something. Like I think I certainly have like a little like, oh, that's fresh and new, and when I unbox it, it's going to be like unused, and it's going to be brand new, and I get to fiddle with it.
I think this plays on my head a lot because I very much feel that I am like subject to that. I love new things. I love technology, but I mean I pass it off as loving technology, and I genuinely do. I love seeing how things have progressed and the things you can do with them and how they enhance the human experience. And there are all sorts of great reasons for new tech, but it's also the problem is that tech, more so than ever with people like Apple, tech and culture have like merged, and then that culture has also merged with like buying and consumer culture. And so they're kind of all like sort of like bedfellows now, where you want this new bit of tech because you think it will be really cool to have, and often it is, but you don't need it. I think that like there's a really nice thing when you can find, and I mean we have it in our job where we can buy new cameras and things like that, and it actually be usable and have a reason for it, which is really great. Because again, watching that Jeremy Clarkson thing, I'm watching him start a farm and he's buying new pieces of machinery and equipment, and I'm like, that must be so awesome to buy a piece of machinery and then like go out into the field and use it and go like, look, this is like done this, then there's something really great about that. And I wonder if it is just consumer addiction or something. I don't know, but like it plays on me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know exactly what you mean. But it's just like, it's almost like also some companies hold back that tech as well. Like you mentioned Apple, where like they're implementing things that have been put into Samsung products or whatever years before.
Ago.
And it's just like they're slowly implementing those things as big new features, where other people are like looking at that going, what are you talking about? That's not new. And they're just marketing it in a certain way that makes you think, oh yeah, this is exciting just because it was Apple.
As I think about
for that a lot, we buy Apple products.
I start to realize how little I spread out and look at other people, but there was a good Marques Brownlee video on that MKBHD on why Apple takes so long to bring stuff to market that's already out there. And the big argument for it is because of the walled garden and the interconnectedness of every feature that Apple ever releases. They don't just release AirTags as a thing. That's been out for ages. There's so many third-party companies that have things that track things with a little chip, and then you can go on an app on your phone and find it. But Apple has to make it instantly work with their network and just like pick it up, keep you in that ecosystem. I think that's a big part of it. It's like, well, I can't just swap from my iPhone now to an Android because I've got an Apple Watch and a MacBook and a blah blah, and all that stuff works together so well. So that's why they take longer, I think, is because they want to make that AirTag work perfectly with your iPhone and then with your MacBook and then everything else. So that you don't want to let them go.
Experience.
Yeah.
Like that, I mean, that makes perfect. Like, I was going to guess before you even said. I was like, I bet it's to do with user experience, because like the reason that's one of Apple's. I mean, Apple are, I think, very much losing their way. But one of the things that made them so good was like, even their approach to unboxing was meant to be sort of like this origami style experience of opening a box. And the same with their products. Like when you would go to use an app or a feature, you expect it to work as if it was like built with the phone, like, right? And then that is that I mean, that's true. And also you see that in Android phones. You see the problems where, I mean, I don't mind vanilla Android personally, and I always used to try and get Android phones that use vanilla Android, but you have so many crappy third-party UIs and things like that where they're trying to make things work with the different bits of hardware they're putting on their phones. And it shows. And I mean, like, that's why Android is the more enthusiast level, where you've got to try and work out some of that stuff yourself sometimes, versus Apple. Why isn't this just working? I'm going to walk into a shop and go, this isn't working, and they're going to go, okay, yeah, here, this is how you do it. And like, that's it. There's like a definitive user experience with Apple. I'm not saying it's better or
we
worse.
Pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
We certainly do.
It's a lot. Also, just going back, I've mentioned Jeremy Clarkson a few times now. I will say he is a prick. It really annoys me that he seems to keep needing to throw these weird bits of humor in where I just don't like. He's not even making a stance. He just says things that are just like meaningfully stupid or something like that, or like willfully ignorant, but like not even in a insightful or funny way sometimes, and it's really annoying because I don't remember. He wasn't always like this sort of asshole, and people say he was, and it's not. I don't know why he does it. I think it's because he's an old man now, and even when Richard Hammond did that joke about eating an ice cream looks gay, it's just like out of touch. Like it's not even kind of edgy funny or anything like that. and he still suffers with
wonder
that.
if it
But this
just-
show is much more about like all the people he interacts with and all that as well. Like there's a lot more to this show than just him. And I deep down, I think I probably would get on with him. It's just annoying that he does say some of this stupid shit, and that's why a lot of people don't like him.
Do you
I get
think
it.
that that's like playing into the fact that, yeah, he's getting older and doesn't care anymore about what people think of him, but also it maintains a level of marketing because ultimately people talk about it. We're talking about it right now, saying this, like, can you believe what he just said? That is enough to
Google his
maintain an
name.
audience, good or bad. It's like the Katie
He's
Hopkins
famous
effect.
enough. I don't think he cares.
Keeps him
I think
relevant,
he
Yeah, but,
likes-
likes-
but he had a new program out, right?
Yeah.
But
And
he
then
is
recently
relevant. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to do this to stay relevant. He had like a massive car.
I'm not saying it's
show,
good
the
or
biggest
bad,
in the
but
world.
maybe that's a thought consideration why it's kept in the edit. Like, it doesn't need to be kept in, right?
Maybe.
That could all be cut out.
True.
It could be a wholesome
True.
farming experience, but no, it's got to be a bit Jeremy Clarkson.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? 'Cause, yeah, sometimes like you'll notice on a Top Gear episode, he'll then just say, "Unlike the Lithuanians" or something like that, and then people start clapping as if that's like a note. What does he? What's his point there? He just says these offhand comments, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And the other day there was an article or something about him saying people shouldn't men shouldn't open up about their mental health and stuff, and it was very odd.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
mentality
yeah,
to
I
go,
saw
do you
that,
see the
yeah.
headline for that? And it's just very like,
I've always
What-
repressed it, and
what
it
reactions
never
you trying to
hurt
get?
me.
yeah, exactly. It's never hurt me.
Yeah.
Yeah, holding in my emotions. It's like, okay, well, each to their own, I guess. But you have an influence, and that's
Says to a
damaging.
man that confessed to smoking 750,000 cigarettes and is just divorced from his long-term marriage with kids.
Well, also, and
it's-
also, like the fact that I think the article mentioned something about the fact that he can keep his emotions in when ultimately he can't because he lost his job at Top Gear for punching a
for
guy
lashing out
over
at
stress,
someone.
or whether that was stress related or whatever related. It was clearly something that
Clearly
you wouldn't
manifests
normally
in
do.
other ways that he
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
realize
Exactly.
is related
So-
to him bottling up all his emotions
Yeah.
and not talking.
If you just
them.
spoke to somebody, maybe it would have been, maybe still be a Top Gear. Who knows?
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I just wonder whether that generation is just doomed to die of stress-related illnesses. And it's just an advance that we make because obviously how like lifestyle changes throughout the generations has helped us live longer. Admittedly, I think our life expectancy is actually now declining for the
Yeah.
first time in a very long time.
It is.
But a lot of the life expectancy changes came from living standards and improving our health and things like that. And hopefully, our generation will be a bit more receptive to treating the mind as well as the body. I think so. I think it's really good. I think it's one of the best things that has happened to humankind for a while, at least in our country, or at least in the West. I mean, I can't speak for everywhere in the world, but it certainly feels like a lot more people are talking about it. It's just a shame when there are people like Jeremy who make offhand comments like that don't realize that it's perpetuating a pretty shitty culture. I was talking to my uncles a few weeks back, and just about mental health and stuff, and you can just see like a lot of the tools aren't there, a lot of the approaches to like dealing with it, a lot of the shut up and just grin and bear it stuff just doesn't work with this. It's not.
There's like a stiffening and like a air of like,
exactly.
we shouldn't be. Can we not go there? Like, it's awkward.
Yeah. That is very odd, isn't it? That when you mention anything like that, adults seem to. Well, I say adults, like parents or anyone I've spoken to about it, just tends to freeze up and doesn't have a good response and kind of changes the subject or talks about something kind of vacuous instead. And I think that's the problem, though, isn't it? That's people should be talking about these things, and as much you just got to encourage people to talk more.
Yeah,
but not too much.
It.
Not too
Not too
fucking
much.
much. I think Bo
You mean
Burnham
like
actually
oversharing?
brings it up quite nicely on his new Inside, which we highly recommend watching. I think all of us really enjoyed
Really
that.
good. Yeah.
Great.
Maybe don't give your opinion on absolutely everything all the time. Could you just shut up for 1 hour? That's what he suggests. We don't need to know. And also, it's
Is that talking about mental health specifically?
No. I think it's more about.
Media,
I think it's the individual consuming everyone's opinions all the time. I think is bad. Not necessarily you opening up. I think that's good. However, you taking on board everybody's emotions around the world and everything that's going on. You can't possibly handle that with your with your brain. So maybe just don't for a bit. I think that's maybe what he's trying to
make
get
you
at.
crazy.
Yeah, I think he's literally like lashing out because he's like, can everyone just not for like an hour, not give their opinions on everything for an hour? Because I'm clearly affected by this. So yeah, and I'm addicted to it because social media, innit? So I really enjoyed his show. Should we talk about that for a sec?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what was your favorite part? My favorite song. Well, I love the one Welcome to the Internet because it covers so much ground that like, you know, the points where it makes about, you know, when you're 2 years old, your mum hands an iPad over and that's it. And then it's doing the thing it's designed to do, which gets you addicted. And then, you know, bam, you're on the internet and
we didn't actually have that experience though. It's quite interesting.
We didn't have that
we were one of the last generations.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably the sort of if you were sort of maybe 14, if you're 40, probably not many people listening to this podcast are probably of the age where they were given one. I imagine it's hard. But now, 100% it's the norm, which I get because it's
I have a question about how many of your friends outside of like kind of, you know, the internet and stuff actually use the internet the same way that you do or are aware of, you know, Reddit and use Twitter or anything? Because I find that hardly anyone I know bothers with it. They just like, oh, I don't really understand it, so I don't bother, or I don't use Twitter and stuff. And it's like, okay, so these are the people handing over the iPads to their kids without any of that kind of usage themselves to know that maybe there's certain websites you should avoid. Maybe you should put certain locks on there. I know obviously there is education around that, and you know there is certain things you can block, but there's only a time limit before a kid starts exploring themselves. And yeah, once they've got the device, they've got the device. And that's the worrying thing. I had to explain that to my brother, just like, because he doesn't really know too much about the internet and stuff. And yeah, he just gave his kid an iPad. So it's just like, you need to be careful of what you're showing there, because when you leave them alone with it, God knows what they go on or what they accidentally click on. And that's the worry, because it could divert you anywhere, really.
They will supersede your knowledge very, very quickly as well.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting point. Is like my brother was joking about it with my nephew, who was like 2 at the time, I think. It was like, oh my God, he's already like managed to unlock my iPad and stuff. Like he's figured out my code and things. Like he's so like good at like touching the screen. I'm like, yeah, that's scary for a 2-year-old. What will they learn next? You know, and should that be managed and maintained?
I think
there should be warnings to their kids at least.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Every child's worst enemy is their uninformed parents.
Well,
it doesn't stop at internet
and
use
quicksand.
Here. Like,
yeah,
but it doesn't stop at internet use. It stops at the other terrible shit their parents do. And I'm not talking about your friends or anything like that. I'm talking about this weekend. I saw a woman take a shopping cart with her 3 quite loud kids. She pushed the shopping cart full of crates of beer to a white van where her husband was waiting on double yellows. They loaded the Budweiser into the back of the van. And then this is on off the turning of a busy road into a small car park. On the corner, she left a full-size shopping cart that she'd stolen from the supermarket to take the stuff that she'd bought to her car, then just left the shopping trolley in the middle of the road on the corner. So if any car quickly turned in, it would just be immediately in front of them and probably cause. And then they just drove off. And I'm like, you know, I hope that kid gets an iPad, because let's hope that it somehow makes it smarter than these people really are. So really, I mean, we can worry about this. And you're right, for the people near you, you're absolutely right, Ross. You are essentially the ranger in the safari of the internet. You know, you're there. You've popped out of a bush with your Nigel Thornberry hat on. Oh, I've just been looking at some horrible stuff on Live Leak. And you're like, oh there, kid. And your brother is like the tourist who's there in his like Hawaiian shirt with his camera ready to go, and his excited child there. You know, that's the iPad, right? They're about to go into the savannah or the jungle, and you're luckily there to guide them, to stop them getting eaten by the crocodiles.
Now this is a rickety bridge over a cesspool of snuff videos, so let's just guide you easily over this rickety bridge. Oh no, he's
This
seen
is
one.
we're
Damaged.
about to go through the rapids of Reddit. It can be an excellent ride, but it can also be a dangerous tumble. Oh, your
Oh.
kid's fallen into some white supremacy Reddits.
He's
like,
radicalized.
Yeah.
Damn it.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But I think that we're there's just I think that this is also kind of where like woke versus anti-woke culture is coming from in a little bit, because I think that there are people that spend a huge amount of time on the internet and a huge amount of their energy in conversing with people in online communities and interacting with complicated websites full of media and full of different opinions and ideas and things. And that makes us as internet users quite competent and a little bit mad as well, quite competent at absorbing information and trying to mediate it in some respect, right? Like, again, I'm
I
not
think
saying
that's
that this
key.
is perfect.
Yeah.
And also, I think that there's value in like going on Discords and spending your evenings talking to people who are from different countries and things like that. You know, like there's the value in all of these perspectives you're getting, and then you have people who, and that makes us just kind of hyper aware, because we have to be, because we're interacting with so much stuff all the time, and that might take us the wrong way down certain routes. It might make us, more extremist or prejudiced. It might make us overly empathetic and hyper aware of everything we do. It might make us adhere to rule sets like telling people our pronouns, which I'm not judging either way, or displaying a preferred pronoun. And then you go into an environment of people who've never used the internet and never understand all these things, and you're coming in as this hyper aware person, and that to them makes you seem really strange, aloof, extreme, because you've come from a world with a completely different set of interaction rules. And then I think that's where a lot of this like woke and anti-woke stuff is coming from, because like I don't think anyone wants to be a bigot. I don't think anyone wants to be closed-minded. I just think that people feel that they don't understand, and they don't understand because we interact in so many different worlds. So
Or the fear of other.
Yeah, exactly.
In that sense,
like,
they're fearing the people who are using the internet more and learning these things by educating themselves, etc.
It's scary
Yeah.
not
And then
knowing
they're
something.
scared. They're scared of change. And then when someone says you should be acting like this, you're like, well, why? Well, just because you told me.
Exactly.
And then
exactly.
yeah.
I think,
and you might think you should act like that because you've interacted with a bunch of stuff. I'm not saying that the people who are anti-woke or whatever you want to call it are necessarily uninformed. It's just you're informed. We're all informed about different things in different quantities, and it's about coming to a group decision by taking all the information that all of us are absorbing on both sides of either argument and trying to route through that together to form a route that we can progress through together. Because otherwise we're just creating two opposing narratives all the time that are constantly at war, like until one destroys the other ultimately, which is just chaos. And
I feel like
fucking a waste of everyone's fucking life.
You could get a lot out of the internet even as a kid if you have if you're equipped with the tools to be able to cope with what you just absorbed. I think that's an important step, right? An open dialogue with your parents about like, I am terrified about what I just saw. Can you help me get through this, like emotionally?
For
sure. Being okay with that. Like, imagine having that, just saying like, going to your parents of our generation and saying, I just saw a cartel decapitation, and I'm really not good. What would they say to us?
Well, this is the thing. Like, would you tell your parents you've seen one of that in the first place?
Or this
you wouldn't want
thing.
that discussion. Well, for the most part, I wouldn't want that discussion because one, you'd be like, well, why are you looking at that stuff? And then you'd get there'd be an accusatory,
That's what I'm trying to say.
Where it's like, well, I stumbled across it, like, and that's just what might happen.
And that's why I'm talking about that open dialogue with a parent who is like, you know what, that's okay. Like, if the reaction was different and it was like, you know what, I did that when I was a kid, don't worry about it. And I know it's pretty traumatic. And if that dialogue was different, you wouldn't have that preconceived, like, I'm never going to tell my parents because they're going to tell me off. If that wasn't the case.
I'll point out, I have no idea, like, what is taught in schools these days. So, like, this could be, I know that they teach, like, coding quite early on. So they must be teaching kind of safety online quite early on, which you'd expect. So it's not just necessarily the parents. That hopefully you'd expect schools to kind of be stepping in and explaining this stuff. And we don't have kids. None of us have kids, so we can't really talk on a first-hand basis, but it definitely does worry me just seeing a child with access to all that stuff and not necessarily knowing whether they are aware of what they're accessing.
to cope with it.
So
and the thing is, like,
just knowing
I
from
think you
our
need to
experience on the internet.
ideally hold hands, like Trott was saying. Like, if you could hold, like, give a person access to whatever they want, like, freedom is important. I mean, this is probably the quandary of all parents who've tried to, do this. None of us are parents, so we don't.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess we
easy
don't have
to,
that
like,
perspective, but like,
sit and just
I
say,
guess
this is the best
you
way.
always want to try and give
Exactly.
your kid the most freedom you can, whilst also being safe and looking after them because they're a kid. But like, yeah, I know what you mean. I think that is personally the best way. I think that as little, limitation as possible, but equally understand that they're accessing a resource that you can only teach them about so quickly. This is the sum of all recorded information of humankind, and that is full of some crazy shit.
Some of that can be very traumatic.
Yeah, you teach a person
Yeah.
how to use a library or read a book before you give them a book. I guess it's just it's just responsible parenting.
There's so much. I think it's just so much more complex when you know that the thing you're giving them is going to entertain them for hours, and it gets them out of your hair. You can do something else, and it's just that knowledge is just like too tempting not to use. So I imagine doing the precursor to that and kind of educating about certain things. Because one thing I remember walking in on. My niece, who was watching like Coco Melon videos or something, but it recommended. It then went on to its own recommended kind of list of YouTube videos. So they started bringing up random kind of like podcast stuff which just wasn't related to it. But like the discussion in that wasn't vetted in any sense. It's not for kids, but like it just takes you there. Like, so like you can only imagine like how damaging that could be if it went to somewhere very bizarre. I mean, there's weird stuff on YouTube, but.
It used to work when you could put a kid in front of a few TV shows and you knew the TV show schedule and knew that, like, for the next hour, it's going to be CBeebies, the Teletubbies, and something else that's going to make me want to blow my brains out. But, like, you could, with Discovery, like within natural digital discovery, be it through, like you say, autoplay features, you are legitimately, opening up. Anything could come up. So, you definitely need to, like, choose the video.
Could be a popping channel.
Something that. Yeah, it could be. I mean, popping.
You suddenly you're watching Coco Melon. Look in the corner, and then suddenly a little knife comes into the screen and pops a little.
Yeah. Suddenly your kid wants to be a surgeon.
And Trott's reaction is that, and the kid's like, "What is this?"
Your kid wants to be a surgeon now. Your kid's inspired to become a surgeon for the rest of their life, and they go on and help people.
This is where this comes in. No backhand. No.
Yeah.
No, I don't do that. I don't advocate that.
No. Popping is not for you.
Turns out Chris Trott, incredibly authoritarian father.
Because of that.
Trott, Chris Trott goes by the mantra, if they don't respect me, they will fear me.
That's on my t-shirt. It's just the back of my hand. If in doubt, use this.
My father taught me everything with the back of his hand. Jesus Christ.
Now carry on that legacy. That is a big point, though. It's like, we aren't exactly well-rounded, as we discover every Hat Chat, of like there's a lot of flaws here, and that is going to get imposed in some way. I don't think either of you are going to have kids. I probably might at some point, accidentally or not. Who knows?
Am I?
But I need to think about these things. I did find a story about
condoms, if you wanted to.
I know, like, it's just like with anything, though. You have your best, you can plan as well as you like. Like, this rafting trip is going to go the best. Like, we plan everything out, and then it completely changes when you get there. There's only so much you can
die.
Yeah, and
then we had to hire a guy in America to act and look exactly like Craig for the rest.
He did a great job. He's been doing
a great job.
Yeah, I can imagine all the good parents that go in with like best interests of like, I'm not going to give them this iPad. I'm not going to fucking do it, and then they're woken up every hour throughout the night trying to feed like a newborn. And it's like, what? Fuck it, I'm so fucking tired. Here's a goddamn iPad. Yeah. Go watch some cartel beheadings.
Exactly, yeah.
It's holistic. It's holistic. Raising a child is holistic, isn't it? Like, it's holistic. And like, nobody knows how to raise the perfect kid. I mean, I can certainly point out some kids
tell
I don't
Jeff
like,
Bezos' parents,
but I don't know how they became.
I do think there is also this naivety that anything on the internet is safe, and I'm on this website, so what could go wrong? But like, I feel like that naivety could be dangerous.
Jesus, don't start talking about Mumsnet. I accidentally found myself on Mumsnet the other day.
Really?
Christ. Fuck
Yeah.
that.
What's-
It's
is that
like
just
the
what they do complain
worst
about?
forums ever.
Right.
Like, as in, imagine just a bunch of people just desperately all like crabs in a barreling each other, where they're trying to become like the most morally superior
Supreme
person
mother.
on the forum. It is honestly hell, like absolute
So
hell.
are they just
for
like
me.
taking notes on each other's stuff and being like, well, you should be doing this instead?
I can't. I don't
How
even
long
know
did you
how I
breastfeed
got
for?
onto it.
Actually.
I think it might have been. It's like Reddit, right? It's like those terrible Reddit threads where people
Yeah.
don't realize that it's just the internet and we're all just trying to get something out of it. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's like the anti-Reddit. It's amazing, really. You go on there and it's like, and also it's constantly at war with itself, desperately trying to not propagate conspiracy theories and poor medical advice.
Right.
Like
Oh,
so
God.
like I don't know if you guys have had this, but my parents have started doing it recently, where they message me on WhatsApp whenever a new scam comes along.
Right,
And they'll
okay.
be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's a new HSBC scam or something like that," or "There's these people
Yeah.
texting you trying to get your phone." It's just like, man, if I don't know the
Yeah.
person on the other side of the phone, I am ignoring the phone call. Like, you know, like as in like, it's just there's a certain level of like natural resistance. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure we'll be scammed at some point. I'm sure I have been at some point. But like, it's
Go get
funny
us.
to sort of see this like,
They're persistent.
Christ, the internet's coming for us, those clever bastards. They'll creep into, like, you know, like, it's just like,
Well, yeah, like, I mean,
be
it took a long
aware,
time.
but
It took a
oh
long
my
time for
God,
people to use
paranoid.
cards online.
yeah.
Like using cards, or like, I know my nan didn't buy anything online for years, absolutely years, because of the scams. Obviously, but then you should be aware. But like, you know, there are safe ways to do things. It's just, you know,
Yeah.
looking up the
I mean,
right ways to do
it's a
things.
bit like, you know, like those things they always did, like, "Oh, give me a call when you get there." It's like, oh, you know, like, it's those things they'll just say because it feels better to say them than to not say them and then it happened. You know, like like regret management or something. I don't know, but like, I'll just go in balls deep with regret. Let's do it.
Well, I'm
No
glad-
regrets.
it's a good thing they know about them, though. At least they're like warning you, and you know that's a nice thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
It's probably just I've instilled in them like an utter fear.
fear, yeah.
In
but the thing is, the text ones are really convincing, and like
Yeah.
I can
Some
see
of
someone
them are very
accidentally
good.
clicking the links in those because it's just like, oh, okay, I wonder why HSBC.
That's
Oh,
true.
for fuck's sake.
That's the
And
other
then
thing
you
you got to
should-
be careful
yeah.
about is
Susan across the road answered the phone, got scammed, and now her son's in prison in Bangkok. Bloody hell.
wow.
We're selling cookies for his release. What? This is so weird. Such
See,
a
that's
strange...
a very real life-changing scenario is when you hand your kid an iPad and they somehow financially bankrupt you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
fuck.
the games though. I mean, have
Yeah.
you seen the amount of like people who've had to like get refunds where their kids spent like 10 grand on like Candy Crush or something?
Yeah.
Just because they have access to the cards like plugged in,
Don't
all they do is say
understand.
yes.
Yeah.
And then suddenly their parents have spent a lot of money on a pointless game.
Digital products. Yeah.
Isn't it just insane that can happen?
It's designed
it's-
for that to happen, though, isn't it? Really, they've designed it to
Oh,
be
it
as
is.
easy as possible to spend all of the money in your account.
But it's not even real. Like it's like imagine going to a shop and buying a bag of, let's say, chocolate buttons. All right.
Mhm.
So as a kid, you found that if you wave this card in front of the machine and you ask for some chocolate buttons, you get them and you can walk around out and eat them. Right. Like
Right.
there's only so many times as a kid you can go to a shop and that happen. Right. Because
Oh, yeah.
A, you're going to get sick. B, the person in the shop's gonna be like, where the hell is this kid getting all this money?
Also, yeah.
And there's almost a responsibility there. If the shopkeeper kept taking that child's money, I think eventually someone would be very pissed off. But because
Yeah.
it's this digital fucking
anonymity. yeah.
nameless microcurrency, it's just like, well, it's just the market, isn't it? It's just,
Yeah.
it's the way it is. It's just like, for fuck's sake, like somewhere along the line, consumers have lost out.
Yeah.
So, I
And also,
don't know, like-
digital companies make it really hard for you to like have feedback or customer service from them.
Yeah.
Like, imagine trying to get something from Google
It's
or
all
whatever.
the
like
ease
a
of
feedback.
access as well. Like save your payment details for next time. Yeah. So you can
Yeah.
just like click a single button next time and then buy the
Yeah.
same thing.
And it is convenient
Much
for
easier.
an adult. It's perfectly convenient.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
like
there's
it's
no, like,
great if you
safeguarding.
could be responsible with it. But yeah, like not good for microtransactions. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. I mean, this was a spin off of the Inside
Bo Burnham.
film.
Really good.
of Bo Burnham. Yeah.
I personally liked just this level of creativity able in a lockdown.
Yeah.
battling his own brain, because obviously that comes out a lot about his deteriorating mental health in lockdown. But then, you know, creating a Netflix show out of it. And just some of the things he did with lighting and camera angles and using his 4 to 8K, I don't know what it is, camera to 6K, do like
I think,
digital zooms and things like that. Just like super creative guy. And I thought the actual produced music he made, they stand alone really well. They're not just like, it's funny. It's funny music that's like, but you got to watch the show to really appreciate it. I could actually listen to these songs and be like, yeah, that's actually a pretty good song, and like quite sophisticated lyrically. Got some really interesting ideas.
And
I think
the effect and the show that he actually managed to put on as one guy stomping on light triggers and stuff like that, you know, was really good. Like he had to like a lot of those shots were one takes where he had to like either perfectly mime or record and do something with like a light in his hand and hit something with his feet and play the piano in a take. Like that's so impressive.
That is impressive. I mean, you will see that like on live stages and stuff. People will do that, but like on his own, I think I thought the cinematography was impressive in itself. The creativity of
to
that
get
alone,
that shot of himself
is great.
He's setting up the camera to then put himself in frame and be perfectly in focus and stuff. There's a lot of those things that would be such a ball ache to
and
achieve.
Move and remember the words, like and like hold things. Like I mean, he's doing a lot of
the
different
thing is like
actions.
I think what makes it so inspiring, what makes it so inspiring is it looks attainable. It's almost like I could do that like in my room if I got the lights and stuff and thought about. I think he made it look so organic and easy. Like he put the mess in all the shots and stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, I can relate to that. Like my cables are so messy. All I have to do is just move
that looks like our room or Yog's studio room or whatever, you know, like
So I think that office. Approachability and we can relate to a 30-year-old turning 30 and very much of our generation. Thinking about the internet and the way it's affecting us and stuff. So
also just I think we probably, well, I saw a lot of YouTubers and stuff make comments on it, and I think it's a relatable thing in terms of trying to be creative when you've exhausted so much stuff over the years, and you're like, what different thing can I do now to make this interesting and different? And his obviously parameters for that room, he had to make them. I'm guessing he made the music there as well as the video.
Seems like it,
and I think also having a target was probably like this. I'm going to make this entire thing in this room. That's the theme. That's the setting. And I think having those kind of targets is really interesting. And I think we work best when we have those kind of pressures. And I think I find that really relatable. Some of the best
stuff is sponsored because we get a specific brief and we have a deadline we have to achieve, and we have to come up with something creative to like make it worthwhile getting paid to do it. But also to appeal to our audience that this is sponsored, but we put a lot of effort into making it actually enjoyable for you. So I think, you're right. The limitations make us the most creative.
Yeah. Also, the pressure's off in terms of like the things that we do worry about. It's like, will enough people watch it to make that worthwhile? Like that pressure's been taken off for a sponsored thing because you're like, okay, well, they paid for this, so we just really use our creativity and just have fun with it and not worry that it'll tank for our audience.
It's not going to get the ad revenue.
We've done it for us as well. But I related with that element of what he was doing. But
he also doing that through a
pandemic.
Being a consumer of this stuff as well. He did that quite well with his like, I'm just going to react to this unpaid intern thing. There I am, and I'm actually being a bit egotistical at this point. It's very smart. And the gaming one as well is like, okay, some sort of indie game, 2D perspective. I guess I'll just cry.
I'll cry over here.
Oh, wow, yeah, get it. Thanks for the resub. It's just so on the money.
Even in a year to come up with all of those different, because I'm sure there was probably some songs that got left on the cutting room floor and stuff that he started, worked really hard to try and make work and didn't. So just to get that quantity of stuff even in a year, I think is impressive. Like sometimes we get lucky. I mean, obviously what's interesting is he did very much do what we like to do, where it's about 1.5 minutes of a very catchy song and then he'll stop
and move on.
I don't mind. I mean, in the view of a show, especially in like watching the show, I think that really works, where you don't have to listen to a 3.5 4-minute piece of music between each like change, I think really works.
Well, that's it. Because I imagine his planning was based on, I've got 90 minutes to fill here. I've got to stage this in a correct way, so it's going to start in a certain way. The middle needs to be at this point, and yeah, it needs to kind of develop from that. So I imagine just planning that would be tough. Like when we've done music projects, we do it in an evening. Everything's rushed. The production quality's not amazing, but like I always leave that with quite a sense of satisfaction because we've created something and
threw it all out there.
Kind of,
it's a bit like doing the Bob Ross
really.
Paintings, like when it's like it's 20 minutes of quite intense work, but you step back and you're like, I did way more than if I'd had an hour to do this. Like I think I'd probably be at the same point. If it, there is something about it.
Because if you're given
I
time,
really want to
it
make
would just
some
be
more
like,
music.
am I happy with this?
Yeah,
it made me want to mess around with vocoders and synthesizers more. And try and come up with some stuff there. Like, I just really like some of his vocal arrangements. He used a lot of vocoder, I think.
He's a very good singer.
Like he is a very good singer as well, which helps. And a very good pianist, very talented. But yeah, it was great. I really liked it. Yeah, it is hard. I mean, obviously there's the thing about the like not much to joke about at the moment. I felt that personally. I mean, it's not just about like not joking, but I think also just life takes a bit of a toll on the levity of your soul.
Wow.
And it does make not to like, you know, it doesn't mean you're less enriched. I feel more enriched than ever, but I do think that, you know, you do grow up, you do change as a person, and sometimes the things that you found funny or the comedy that you'd naturally resort to no longer feels as funny to you or perhaps as relevant.
Yeah, but if you farted in my mouth again, I think you would burst out laughing like you would about 15 years ago.
I mean, some things are timeless. Some things are timeless. Some things are timeless, all right?
Or a classic nut tap. The nut taps were great throughout the years.
I feel terrible about that because that might actually reduce the chance of children at this age.
Sure. Oh, it would. Yeah, I guess so. It depends on how hard you tap.
And Trott's desperate to have some accidentally.
Yeah.
Super keen to accidentally have some children.
Whoops.
Just have it thrust on you. Chris Trott's just hoping to have responsibility thrust upon him.
Oh, whoops. Here we go.
Oh, guess I'm going to have to be a dad now.
Teasing it for too long.
Yeah. I think if I could have a life with children and a life without, I would.
Just like choose to flip-flop. Sips has managed it quite well.
Well, has he? Man lives in a garage. Pretty much.
He loves his
24/7.
garage, though. He loves it.
Well, that's great for him.
It's got aircon.
I don't want the garage life, Trot.
Well, you don't have to have it, Alex Smith. That's
exactly
your privileged position.
That's the beauty of choice. But I mean, I do feel like I miss out on something if I didn't have children. I mean, I would. Absolutely.
You can have mine if you want.
Human experience.
Yeah, people say that. Well,
your children drop.
People say when you get to a certain age, there is that element. Like if you've not had kids, there is that element of like, oh, something's missing, and you know, it depends on what you do later in life, I guess.
Yeah, it's all about perspective. I think if you feel like you're getting plenty of value without, and there's so many more life experiences to have without that, then you know, it's all about perspective, really.
Yeah,
but I mean, I think every. Well, it is FOMO. It is FOMO, really. That's how I see it. It's
about pushing down that FOMO with other cool experiences, though.
But there are endless cool experiences to do. I think the one thing is when I hit about 60, a lot of those experiences are going to narrow to things that perhaps don't put so much stress on my body. But like, I could definitely fill the next 20 years with cool shit. Definitely. But the problem is,
you saw that video of the 80-year-old grandma jumping out of a plane, didn't you? Was she almost? She was 80. She was doing parachuting. Like that's impressive.
But like once. She's not like going up the hill a few times a day, is she? She's getting.
And she almost
essentially,
fell out,
she's strapped. Was she strapped to somebody as well?
She was strapped to a guy, but like obviously, like just before they jumped, she slipped a bit, and then he's having to hold her and hoist her up, and it's quite horrifying to watch. But ultimately, entertaining. She survived, so it's fine. You can laugh about it. But
would you do a skydive?
Would you
guys do a skydive?
I am timid about skydiving, only because like. Scares the shit out of me, but it's the type of thing that maybe I think maybe there's a point in your life where you're like, shit, fuck it, do it, let's do something crazy, let's do something different for that day.
I don't think I'd be.
I think that is important though. I think it is important to do things that you're not comfortable with sometimes.
Do you think you'd try hard drugs as an 80-year-old?
I don't know if my body could take it.
Never say never. Yeah, well,
if you were told by a doctor, to be fair, if I could get like clean heroin at the age of 80, and I had a doctor who'd tested the heroin, and well, I mean, they could probably just give me morphine. Let's be honest.
I was going to say, the amount of people at that age going to the doctors are probably being
for
given
that kind of thing.
quite
They'll be
strong
laughing.
drugs.
Maybe that's why it's not a common thing. Maybe that's why OAPs aren't
Yeah.
all addicted to hard drugs, because they're getting them through their chemist.
Yeah.
We're
looking
but I
forward to
would
our
definitely
80s
be
for
like,
wrong
right,
reason.
let's do it. Start tripping absolute balls. All right, doctor, give it to me straight.
God.
If I take ayahuasca at 95, how much of a chance is there that I won't come back? Just gone. He's just loony in the corner. We've left him in his aviary with all his birds.
Honestly, he's happy.
Tripping balls.
He's happy.
But he's bloody got a smile on his face, and that's all that matters.
He's tripping for the rest of his life.
But yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
my
maybe.
God.
But it is something I do think about. I don't know. I don't like children. I never really liked children. That is one thing that tends to put me off them.
Yeah,
I feel like
probably
I think we're in a unique position. I mean, I don't have many friends that actually want kids either. Saying that, but like I feel like because of our job and what we do, we've kind of had to kind of maintain a state of childlike humor and kind of mentality to at least I guess adapt our content to an audience that we know will be potentially younger, maybe not too young, but I think that we play games for a living, which I think there's a lot of my friends who don't play games at all. And I think that's kind of a different mindset. Maybe
that children is what you're saying.
Equates. So well,
we're
in our
Peter
heads a little bit. I think we're Peter Panning. Yes.
I think in the real world or outside of people that don't do this, a lot of people stop playing in the traditional sense when they're adolescents or young adults. Exactly, and start doing adult things. We haven't had to do that.
Work takes over because this is our work.
Yeah, exactly.
To wear suits and
I think it's really interesting because I appreciate that there is that big difference in our life versus a lot of people's lives, and I really think that playing, especially through LARP, has shown me that as well. Playing is really, really important to the human mind.
Fucking nerd.
And I feel like, especially human interaction through play as well, is really important.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, there's this huge social
wailing on an orc with a foam sword.
Interaction
through play.
Take that, you son of a bitch.
But like, I just don't think I'll ever want to stop doing that. And I do think it's strange that, and I do kind of in a way think that
sad, isn't it?
It slows that down.
Yeah.
Like,
why do people feel like they need to remove that?
I do think they won't remove it entirely. I mean, I do think that having children must be incredibly interesting because
the people that feel like
them.
I have to be an adult now and stop doing these silly things is what I mean. Yeah. They're like, why remove that? Like, no one's judging you. You can keep doing it.
I think it's more of a case of I think it is distraction. So like if you did have a kid, that's a huge distraction.
Yeah,
if you were able to play games, I'm sure you would. But it's more of a case of shit. I'm knackered. I don't have time for this. I'm going to bed. Like, I think that's the mentality some people have, and
basically, And also the thing about like not liking kids, I don't really like kids either. I don't think anyone particularly likes other people's kids anyway. I was talking to Sips yesterday. We played a bit of Rocket League. He was like, I'm not really a kids kind of guy.
He said that.
But you've got the third on the way. Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I really like my own, obviously, but I'm not. I've never been like I'm gonna be a dad kind of guy. So I don't think it really matters. I think it's a very different experience. But anyway, I'll pop some out for you to see if any of them take your fancy.
I don't want this one. This one's ugly. Though this one's ugly
too. That one.
Don't take your ugly progeny and throw them in the lake.
But yeah, I think there's a certain bond there which I don't think any of us can even imagine really until we.
No, exactly.
Should we do a video where we try and recreate that bond with one of us?
What?
Like we do. What? Let's try and find.
We adopt a kid for a week.
No.
And decide
between us.
Oh, decision day. Do you want to keep him?
Actually.
We recreate like a fake umbilical cord and like try and foster like a physical bond.
Well, they do that. It's like that thing on Big Brother where they gave everyone like those like dolls, I guess, which could react to like movement. So if you drop them, then but you have to look after them for a certain period, and then I don't imagine you would get a bond to it, but it's more of a case of your skills as someone who could look after an infant. So I don't know if that would make you any more attached to the idea of having a child.
More scared.
It's just
fearful.
I mean, if anything, just preparing you for
first day of that project, I just popped the bugger in the microwave.
Yeah.
He goes, well, we've got some data here that says that you popped it in the
Oh my
microwave.
God.
It's
Its
very hot.
temperature's
So
soaring
what happened
at the
there? Is he out
moment.
in the sun or?
Oh,
No, I just popped it
he's
in
in
the
the
microwave.
barbecue.
Wasn't interested. Oh, okay. His battery's
Not
bloody
interested
blown
in this
up, so-
experiment.
But yeah, I don't know if that compares.
No, maybe
But
not.
I mean, the other thing I was thinking of in terms of I guess excitement or childlike wonder is how little I'm excited about anything from E3. Just
Oh yeah,
that was
E3.
over the week.
Yeah, it was a bit
There's
disappointing.
nothing that's really just But then I don't know if that's because I'm older and I'm not that fussed, and I'm happy with a lot of the games I play anyway, or if they just have an underwhelming E3 this year, which you can understand. They
think
can't do the same things they did, but it's just a series of trailers, isn't it?
I think I'm done with the format of E3 and trailers.
Yeah.
I don't think I like the presentation of things and trailers as they exist.
Yeah.
Especially at E3, where it's all like really in your face and just over the top, like everything's juiced up and not representative of actual gameplay. I know they're trying to get you excited and understand the new world that they're trying to show you, but sometimes I feel like I'm treated like a child. It's like, explore a vast open world where pressing A does this, and then you get to do this cool other action with your squad, like a tutorial trailer that happens so often nowadays. I'm just like, oh God, really?
Or just no real tangible gameplay that makes it kind of convincing. So you see that it's bombastic CGI trailing. Like, oh, okay, well, that's an idea of what I'd like, but I don't think the game's going to be anything like that. So you have to wait, and then it's just underwhelming.
I was initially very annoyed at the Battlefield trailer for that very reason, but they released a gameplay trailer, and I know it's part of a package of marketing where this is just like, there's a new one coming, and it's set in this time, and it's got all these cool features. Now I'll show you the game afterwards. I get it, but in and of itself, I'm like, that's such a non-trailer for me. It's like, it's not going to make me buy the game based on that alone. But there is other stuff coming, and it has come since and will come.
I'll tell you what would make me buy a game, though. It would be whether it was featured on any of the Hat Films media family outlets, whether it be podcast, Hat Gaming, Hat Films.
Right.
You can trust our voice.
We're the voice in the dark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think in general,
Fly Spray as well. I can advertise that.
Seeing people playing a game and their reactions to something is so much more convincing than any trailer.
Yeah, it's
like seeing someone actually doing something, you're like, oh God, I want to have that experience. I'd rather see something like that and be convinced in that sense.
And that ties
I think
gaming
a faking piece of shit, which is
gaming has
out there.
gone through the full commercialization mill, hasn't it? Basically, it's why you all feel so disenfranchised with it. The same thing happened to the Marvel movies. Like, I know Marvel's changed some stuff up, and their new content's really good, and you can see how they've changed their production style, and that's why it's interesting again. But how everyone had like Avengers fatigue. I think everybody now has a similar fatigue, but with games being announced at places like E3. I think that gaming largely has become quite democratized in that people now buy games based on what people within their communities are buying and how well rated or, how much people are talking about it on Reddit and things like that. I think that largely we can see through that. There's also a huge amount of the market who is simply interested in the next Fortnite expansion, and that entire market is basically attached to Fortnite. And then you have these other markets like Call of Duty, like Battlefield, who are trying to get that school of fish to come over to their game. And that's kind of a different process again. I don't know. I think there's different demographics playing different kinds of games, and there are different ways to target those demographics, essentially.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the target audience for E3, which is brought up in our live chat, was it's not necessarily for consumers. It's also for like gauging interest in audience demographics and stock and investments. People that are willing to invest in these sorts of things. So it's not even necessary. E3 wasn't really open to consumers. It was all for like journalists and stuff for a long time before they start introducing like live streams and consumer days and things like that. So that makes it, and a lot of that carries over to today, where it's just like, here's all the big AAA games. Our company's doing great. Please, stockholders, you're all good.
I think they also put a lot of weight on nostalgia as well. I think with like
a lot of sequels,
all these sequels. So you're like, oh yeah, it's going to be as good as that last time when I first jumped into Battlefield or whatever. And then you realize I just died all the time in Battlefield. Like, am I going to get a different experience in the new one? I don't know. I mean, but maybe you can spend all that time in it, or all those people who are really good at it are going to transfer over, and it's going to be the same hell it was before. And you're just literally riding off this nostalgic, oh yeah, no, the new game will be better. Again, probably goes back to the consumerism thing we were talking about at the beginning. Where it's like, oh, it's something new and shiny, but it's the same experience really deep down.
It's all connected, Ross. Everything.
It is,
Our
it
entire
is.
life is underpinned. Everything we do in our lives is underpinned by consumerism and money.
Indeed.
Like, I
Well,
mean,
actually, sorry, that brings us on to one of the stories I found, and I wanted to briefly mention it.
Go on then.
Which was from recently. Did you see this from Cristiano Ronaldo, where he moved a Coke bottle, and then he didn't even say I hate Coke or I don't like Coke. He just said agua, which is water in Portuguese. And it took off 4 billion off of Coca-Cola's stock value, which isn't actually that much in the scheme of things. So I think they have a market value of 242 billion. It went down to 238 billion. So it wasn't a huge damage, but it's just shocking how like such a little act can cause so much financial damage. But yeah, he took it off. It's not a sports drink. And they're being threatened with fines for doing this in the future as well, which is just consumerism, advertising, sponsorship, all those flaws in one. Where it's like, look, this doesn't actually contribute to this sport whatsoever. This drink. If you drink this, you're not going to get better at football. You're going to get sluggish and want to sit down. So I kind of have a lot more respect for Cristiano Ronaldo for doing that in the first place. Because it's
Apparently,
like, look, drink water.
To put it into context, though, that 4 billion is like just a natural peak and trough. Looking at their overall assets is quite minuscule, really. But
exactly,
like you say, 4 billion is
it's
a life-changing amount for anyone else.
Well, sure.
I mean, there's this argument of it's been brought up here in the chat. They contribute massively to grassroots, though sponsors are needed. Yes, however, what they're doing is contributing to having more people who drink Coca-Cola in the future. Like, really, I mean, you're right. Yeah, the money, like, you have a hugely rich corporation who take some of their money and invest it into football, which is great. It's exercise, it's community. There's a lot of good reasons behind, having sports initiatives and things like that. But, they're not doing it just because they want to see that in the world. They do it because it perpetuates the existence of Coca-Cola. And absolutely, when you have somebody who's risen to the top of that system, like Cristiano Ronaldo, who is in a position to go, you know what, hey, I drink water like every day, legit. Like you actually want to get good at, you want to be like me, you want to get to a position like me, you want to be aspirational like to me. Yeah, exactly. It's perfect. It's just a great thing, and it's really good that he did it. Because if you really step back, I mean, I like Coca-Cola. Fuck yeah, I like soft drinks. We're hardwired to love things that are sweet. Like, of course, I'm not saying that you're not allowed to like Coca-Cola. But do we really have to have a fucking fizzy drink with sugar in it?
Yeah.
Be
or
like
McDonald's.
Be like a representation of humanity, which is essentially where it's at now.
Or sports, just sporting events sponsored by unhealthy
I mean, it goes beyond that.
No
Coca-Cola.
sense, really.
You go to any of the developing world, you see Coca-Cola and McDonald's, just their flags flying everywhere. There's no other more recognized nation than that of Coca-Cola. And like McDonald's. And I mean, like, sure, we're all part of making that the most recognized thing. And yes, I love McDonald's. Yes, I love Coca-Cola. But like, is that something we want to hold up? Yeah, like not sponsored. Like, what do we actually want to do? Like, I mean, okay, yeah, that means that there's less funding. Okay, Coca-Cola gets pulled out of football. That means that there's way less funding, way less grassroots. The sport itself would probably suffer a little bit because you'd get less chances of amazing players coming up through all of these small camps being ran in all sorts of crazy corners of the world because these guys have amazing distribution networks. Sure, like, this is true. However, at the end of the day, the whole of humanity isn't swinging on the end of a Coca-Cola bottle. We're not all defined by that. We're more fucking complex than that. Like, hopefully, right? We get to choose a route. We get to choose what we want to be. We're not all just the result of market forces. Like, we don't need, like, people often say that it's always just the way it is, isn't it? It's like, yeah, you can choose, though. You can question it. You can consume and still be aware of how fucked up it is. With a view to change.
I mean, I'm sure Coke owns also various water companies. So but they know what really will sell. They know what will hit the consumer, the person watching at home. That branding, that logo.
Yeah.
Rather than one of their random water companies.
Yeah.
And diabetes is the second biggest strain on our NHS in the country. So do your bit there as well if you want.
Yeah. Which costs everyone.
Yeah, exactly. It costs absolutely everybody. Like, if you want to look
I think
at it
that's
from a completely different angle.
our biggest health crisis is our generation is our sugar content for sure, like processed foods and stuff. Like I was not really limited too much on, like, when I went to school and had pocket money, I'd go to the little shop across the road and get a ton of sweets, or like if you had a sleepover or whatever, I'd get a ton of sweets in. And like I got a sugar addiction really early on, and I don't think that was mediated or like talked about too much or prevented that much. And like our refectory that we had at secondary school, all the food on offer there was like processed pizza, chips, crap like that. And then you had a vending machine on the side that everyone went to get like crisps and sweets and things. I think that's our biggest problem we face is apparently a lot of those like
pre-Jamie Oliver.
Yeah, we're pre-Jamie Oliver. And I think that you got to be careful of that, imposing that on people as well. I think we have that addiction for life, really. It's really hard to get away from that.
Yeah.
A lot of those.
Well, it's less. I mean, you can 100% get addicted to food and stuff. Absolutely. I think that it's less just addiction. It's more just like how physiologically we're set up. We are designed like our mechanisms for enjoying things are based somewhat on calorific content. There's a reason that we prefer certain foods over others because they're more calorie dense. Certain things taste a certain way because, you know, we can process them in certain ways, you know, like sugar is energy in almost its purest form. So of course we want that because we eat to keep us going. And so naturally we're going to want more of whatever the best way to keep us going is. Unfortunately, it's not. But as you know, glucose is essentially what the body metabolizes all food into. Glucose is our energy source. Sugar is a replacement for that, not a good one because it fucks with things like you start producing loads and loads of insulin to try and break down that sugar into glucose, which causes things like eventual diabetes, where your pancreas malfunctions because you're asking your body to process a huge amount of sugar. And our bodies haven't changed in a very, very long time, but our diets have. And we cannot be surprised that by creating more and more calorifically dense food, it has an impact on us because our ways of assessing food haven't changed. Our ways of understanding food and interacting with food haven't changed. But, you know,
our
the foods
access
we're
to it
in our body has. And,
Yeah.
and our access 100%.
Yeah, definitely. It's cheaper
Yeah, it's
to eat
we don't have to
unhealthily.
work for it.
we need to be aware of the fact that we have a responsibility to our bodies, really. Like, I mean, either that or you don't. I mean, it's up to you. You have free will. You can do whatever the hell you want. But, you know,
It'll cost in the long run, right?
I am an unhealthy person. Like, I know I'm an unhealthy person. Like, I am overweight, like marginally. I mean, I must admit, I think my BMI is probably about 21 and a half or something like that. But like, I'm not in peak physical condition, and I will lose years off my life if I don't. You know, I'm trying to sort of do better, eat better, but that comes because I have time to exercise and money to buy good food. You know, that those are two things that are really important.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I'm trying to do better, but like I think that we do also need to be aware of like when we do things, when we eat things, when we eat badly, it is bad and you're doing damage to yourself, and that's your choice, and it's fun and there's pleasure, and like I really get why people eat. You know, it's really fun. Let's be honest. But yeah, we just need to be aware that like when we make that choice, we are making a choice to make ourselves less healthy, and you have to own that. I don't think people. I saw somebody earlier just going like, oh, everyone's got something that they do bad. And it's like, well, yeah, they do. Yeah. But you also need to accept that the thing you're doing that's bad is bad, and it is going to damage you. It's not like don't normalize damaging ourselves. We are damaging ourselves. And it's about whether you care about, I guess, trying to tackle it. It's hard. But I don't know, sometimes I feel it's the same with mental health stuff. Like mental health, sometimes people languish in it a bit, I think. And it's hard not to languish in it, but equally you just need to
change is hard in general
change
as well.
so
if
hard.
you're changing habits, it's hard.
It is.
It's
one of the honestly, it's one of the hardest things. Being a human being, I think it's one of the hardest things you can do in our like experience of life. You know, our everyday experience of like going to work or going to school, and like, you know, our very kind of quite normal lives. Changing habits for the better is totally one of the hardest things to do, I think, because like where the hell do you fit that into the rest of your schedule as well? You know, where do you make that? Where's that energy and that effort come from to address that? Super hard, but
motivation. It's hard.
It's I mean, it's been a good year for it. I've definitely enjoyed the year and a half we've had to try and at least start to examine myself and work on myself. So lucky there.
Indeed. Indeed.
No
There are some
LARP though. LARP
positives.
got cancelled. Fuckers. Fucking hell.
Can't wail on some orcs.
No
Can you do
LARP.
can you do a personal lap? Is there?
I might do a
Can you just
personal
go
lap,
into a
Ross,
field
yes,
with your outfit on?
You're presuming I don't dress up every evening in my gear and walk around
Wow.
the flat pretending to be a rich noble. No, but I mean, yeah,
With its
like maybe a
reptile
camp or something.
dragons.
I mean, we need, when the weather's looking good again in the next couple of weeks, we need to go and do a camp somewhere as well. We want
Yeah.
to go and do the one, like, we need to get you a few basic bits of kit. And also, I know how much weight that you'll want to take that isn't too much,
Nice.
because I took too much and it
Okay.
was really heavy and hard. So
Well, could we not just forage for berries?
you can.
Root vegetables,
fancy?
maybe. I don't know if you'd find those in the wild.
Yeah, no, they're all over the place. You'll all the way up the
Leaves,
side of the
leaves and berries.
mountains.
I'm okay. Leaves and berries.
Yeah.
I'm okay with. Let's just
Yeah.
mulch them up.
Yeah. But yeah, it's we should go up and do it because it's fun. It is fun.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to like be part of a country that as the sun goes down and the sun comes up, you got all the crazy like fog and clouds rolling in, and it's very bracing and makes you feel somewhat more alive than being in a flat for a year and a half, which has basically been my
Yeah. Also, when it comes to like vlogs and stuff, like I don't think we've really covered much of the UK in
No,
general.
exactly.
So like going to places that like people aren't really that interested in exploring normally, because it's like, oh yeah, going abroad is fun and there's so much more stuff and whatever. I'm sure we could find some really interesting things to do here.
Delve into the
and show
UK.
people.
There's an endless.
And learn some stuff for
source.
ourselves as well. It's good.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, that sounds great. What a
Nice.
nice way to end. I thought it was going really
Indeed.
like dark and deep, but we brought it back to the rolling mists of England and all that exploration. that we
Wales
used to do.
technically, but
Wales,
Wales, maybe up to Scotland. Scotland was amazing when we went there.
Yeah. Cool.
You can do it. It's about an 11-hour drive to get to Skye.
But what if I wanted to run?
Probably about 60 hours. I mean, you personally, as somebody who's really good at running, I don't know.
I'm going to take a lot of
You?
breaks.
I'm not a
breaks.
runner. I'm definitely not a runner either. I think it's not going to go well for us.
God
Cycle,
damn, no,
definitely.
punishing.
I reckon we could all
Cycling?
cycle it.
Yeah, my brother
yeah.
cycled up from the top to the bottom. John
Nice.
O'Groats.
Good lord.
Top to bottom. You're
Yeah,
telling me
top
it's
to
not
bottom.
flat, it's up on its end. Is it up on its
I
end
think
like
so.
that?
Yeah, you go up
That's
all
what
up.
all
Did it on
New theory.
unicycle. Crazy.
It's like a flat earth, but it's up on its front instead of on its back.
Yeah, top
I
to
mean,
bottom.
hello, that's a new level of thinking, isn't it? Open your minds, people. Wake up.
Yeah.
Just think about different things. Hey,
Hopefully next time we'll be able to talk about UFOs as well, because I said they're
Indeed.
going to be announcing that before the 25th.
Oh boy.
It's going to be a big one.
I
So
mean,
make sure
I
you
got
tune
some
in.
theories. I've been thinking about them. It's dangerous though because I'll just go mad eventually.
Okay.
So
That's what the
but
aliens
it's cool
want.
because I've got all of these great like mind maps all over the walls
Hmm.
around me with connecting like loads of like with string and stuff.
Perfect.
And it's helping me stay on top of all of it and stay
course.
completely
Yeah,
on the
that's,
level.
that's healthy.
Do you hear, can the reptiles talk to you? Is that also part
They
of that?
sometimes give me tips, but honestly, a
They
couple of them
know. They
recently,
know what's
they've
going
been-
on,
They've been
the
trying
aliens.
to. They've been trying to put me off course of anything.
Yeah.
They tell me things, and I'm like,
Course.
"It's ridiculous. No, there's no way. There's no way." You've
Well-
been talking to the Queen again, haven't you?
Got a direct line. Right. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening today. Much appreciated. Particular thanks to those that support us on our Patreon, of course, patreon.com/hatfilms. This is sponsor free right now. We've been trying to get sponsors. It's not like we actively are against sponsorship, but you guys at Patreon are keeping us going, so thank you for that. If you want to keep Hat Chat going, if you enjoy Hat Chat, maybe consider being a patron. Or if you have some sort of musical talent, just like our wonderful finger creator, Rensselaer, today, then why not send us your MP3 to hatchat@films.com. That'd be lovely. We'd love to share your fingal at the start of our stream. And look forward to the longer version of this one at the end.
Ooh,
And that's about
good
it.
one.
That's all the promoting I have to do right now. Any final
Sweet.
words?
No, thanks for watching, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Or listening,
everybody.
sorry, rather.
Thanks for
Listening.
listening. See you in a couple weeks.
Audio
Fingers
cast.
crossed. Stay safe.
Cheers,
stay
guys.
frosty. Bye, y'all.
Ta-ra!
Bye.
Bye.